On this exciting episode, we've got a health club where the number of workout reps are rivaled by the number of affairs. The exercise equipment turns into legal evidence, and a marriage that was supposedly dead is very much alive. Add in forged checks, a pregnancy claim, and murder. It's not the handball matches that have everyone sweating. It's Perry Mason, Season 5, Episode 11, The Case of the Left-Handed Liar. Welcome to the Perry Pod. I'm your humble host, Jonathan Searcy. My purpose, pretty simple, provide an audio companion to every episode of television's greatest legal drama, Perry Mason. Each episode, we give you a summary of the plot. We even compare plots with the Earl Stanley Gardner novel, if the episode was an adaptation. We give you a little trivia, reveal the episode's theme, and revel in a Perry proverb. That's a pearl of wisdom from the man himself. Before we head to the water cooler, where just like Perry, Della, and Paul, we can discuss the ins and outs of our fave legal cruise adventures. But first, say it with me, to the law library! Each episode in the Law Library, we examine a legal conundrum from the episode to find courtroom precedents for future cases. This episode's legal question involves Perry's request to clear the courtroom of all witnesses during a cross-examination.
I should like to request, Your Honor, that during my cross-examination of this witness, all other witnesses be excluded from this courtroom. Very well, Mr. Mason.
Bailiff will clear the court of all witnesses.
This procedural move, known as sequestration of witnesses, requires several elements. 1. The attorney must demonstrate potential for witness collusion or testimony contamination. 2. The request must be made before cross-examination begins. And 3. The judge must find that the benefit to justice outweighs the public's right to an open court. The sequestration of witnesses remains a common practice today, though judges typically require stronger justification than we see in this episode before they grant such a request. Now, to the plot of this episode. The Case of the Left-Handed Liar. Ward Nichols has a problem. He thought he'd left his Reno marriage in Reno, but his not-so-ex-wife Veronica Temple has shown up at his new workplace, Health House, the swankiest sweat spot in L.A. And who do we spy in Veronica's orbit but Barbara Pepper?
I simply can't reach any lower, Miss Temple. It hurts.
The same actress who was Veronica Dale's mom in The Case of the Vagabond Vixen. Veronica Temple claims she needs...
Look, Veronica, I told you. I can't get the money now. I managed to raise a couple of $1,000s by hawking everything I own, except my soul.
Then you better hawk your soul, darling. And by Friday or the roof falls in. No more great big future with Health House and no more footsie with the boss's niece. Or do you think I'm bluffing?
I wish I did.
Look, Wood, I don't like this any better than you do, but can't you see I have to have the money if I'm to do what you want me to do?
Talk about a hostile work environment, but Ward's got bigger problems. Someone's been forging checks at Health House, $7,000 worth to be exact, and Bernard Daniels, the boss, thinks Ward's the culprit.
Forger working here at Health House? Bernard, you know you've personally passed on every employee here.
Not everyone. Not on Ward Nichols.
Luckily, Ward's fiancée and Bernard Daniels' niece, Casey, knows just who to call. Perry Mason.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mason, but it's after 6 o'clock, and Casey, Miss Daniels, the girl I told you about, is waiting in the law library.
All right, ask her in, David.
Perry Mason, Della Street, Casey Daniels.
How do you do?
Please sit down, Miss Daniels. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. Now, to save time, suppose I go over a resume of what I already know.
Who else is involved in this gym of fools? There's Clara Prentice, a worried secretary.
But I've never seen these checks before either.
There's Eugene Hausman, accountant and champion handball player.
Yes, Ward became assistant treasurer at my suggestion. Mr. Daniels is a little unsure of him, but I felt he was a fine young man.
You got to know him through playing handball with him.
We had many good games.
Milton Berry, the gym MD and love interest of Veronica.
You know, from the start, I haven't liked any part of it.
Not any, darling.
Okay, one part of it.
Buzz Farrell, the bottle-swigging maintenance man.
You're gonna fire him?
Come on, Buzz. A shower and you'll feel better.
Muscle-headed windbag. Gene can't fire me. Let me go. I'll break his neck.
Come on, Buzz. Take it easy.
And Rhonda Hausman, wife of Eugene, and a maid for Joan Banks' role if I ever saw one.
You know, you should be more charitable, since it's a man. If it weren't for poor Buzz's weakness, he could have been a partner in Health House years ago. Just think of the pleasure Buzz would have gotten out of discharging someone like you.
By the time Perry arrives at Health House, Bernard Daniels has taken his final shower. He's found dead in the handball court. Enter Lieutenant Tragg and Lieutenant Anderson, who discover some mighty suspicious documents in Ward's apartment, linking him to ABC Sporting Goods, the company those forged checks were made out to.
Tragg is still holding Buzz Farrell, but there's a pickup out on Ward Nichols. Apparently, Tragg heard about the forged checks and Ward trying to borrow money. And there's worse. On the broken whiskey bottle was a bloody fingerprint.
Not Ward's. Oh, no.
Paul Drake, who Perry insists is a genius,
Now, Paul, maybe you're a genius.
digs up some interesting dirt. Seems Veronica has a habit of collecting husbands without divorcing them, starting with some poor fellow back in Iowa.
A high school marriage in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, with exactly the same pattern as her marriage to Ward.
No divorce there either.
That's right. I finally got someone to talk at the commercial lab Dr. Barry uses. There were never any tests on any Veronica Temple.
Then she wasn't going to have a baby?
Nice girl.
Turns out Bernard Daniels, Mr. Clean Living himself, was cooking up a $75,000 insurance fraud scheme using those forged checks. In the end, Eugene Hausman confesses to the forgeries. He was sleeping with Veronica, too.
You're, left-handed, Mr. Hausman.
Left-handed and right-handed. Many good handball players are ambidextrous, Mr. Mason.
Exactly. Now, you, did use your left hand to sign the checks described here as being forgeries, did you not?
I figured the signature would be just different enough to fool the insurance company.
What made you stoop to forgery, Mr. Hausman? Was it because Miss Temple demanded money from you as the father of her expected child?
Yes. $7,000 more than I could raise without letting my wife or Bernard know.
But it's his wife, Rhonda, who delivers the final blow, literally.
So, that night in Health House, while you were taking a shower and Buzz was sleeping, I took the dumbbell. And I waited until Bernard was alone in the handball court.
She killed Daniels to protect Eugene from blackmail. And in a moment of pure irony that Perry Mason writers live for, she says, "What?
You took the confession, but not the $75,000?
Mr. Mason, I'm not a thief.
In Rhonda's moral gymnasium, it's murder that's the lightweight. In our denouement, Ward and Casey plan their future, and Della leaves Paul to handle the rodeo on his own.
Hey, I suppose you start this thing.
I'm ambidextrous. Allow me.
Hey, Della, turn it off! There, somebody turn this thing off! Help!
Now, let's get trivial, shall we? Each episode in our trivia section, I give you 3 takeaways. A poll is a subject worth investigating more. Adela is a deep dive on an actor or actress who guest starred in the episode. And finally, a Perry is something we learn about our intrepid hero. Our poll for this episode involves the sport at the center of our murder, handball.
He's playing handball with the big boss.
That you did have a row on the handball court.
Your Honor, that dumbbell didn't just fly into the handball court.
Did you pass the handball court on the way?
Nothing on Eugene Houseman, except, of course, for his once having been handball champ.
Our prompt: just how popular was handball in 1961 America? Was it primarily a health club sport, or did it have wider appeal? When did the first handball courts appear in American health clubs, or in America in general? Tell us what you find, Pauls! Our Della for this episode is Les Tremaine, the ill-fated Bernard Daniels.
Oh, come in, Casey. Try some of the pinon nuts or some celery. I'll be with you in a moment.
Here's 10 about Les. Number 1, born London, April 16th, 1913. Moves to Chicago at age 4. Has to lose his British accent after he gets bullied at school. Number 2, started in radio at age 17. Goes on to appear in an estimated 30,000 broadcasts throughout his career. 3, got his big break replacing Don Amici in the first Nighter program in 1936. He performed weekly radio dramas in formal attire, including a top hat. Number 4, by the early 1940s, his voice was considered one of the 3 most famous in America, right up there with FDR and Bing Crosby. Number 5, played iconic radio roles: Nick Charles in The Thin Man, the title role in The Falcon. Number 6, made the transition to television and films in the 50s, appeared in North by Northwest and The War of the Worlds. Number 7, appeared in 8 Perry Mason episodes in various roles, including 2 in 1961 alone. Number 8, provided voices for numerous cartoons, including Mr. Magoo and even the Wishing Well in Daffy Duck's Fantastic Island. Number 9, had quite the romantic life, 4 marriages, including Alice Reinhart, wife number 2, with whom he had an afternoon talk show called The Tremaines. And number 10, passed away December 19th, 2003, Santa Monica at age 90, leaving behind a legacy that earned him induction into the Radio Hall of Fame. Our Perry for this episode involves the case Perry is working on before he sees Casey Daniels.
And it would seem that the rule in California is that in the absence of any evidence tending to fix the time of death during the 7 years period, a person unheard of is presumed to be alive until the expiration of that 7 years.
The legal question he's talking to Della about will come up in Season 8's episode, The Case of the Careless Kitten. A question: were there ever 2 Perry murder cases going on at the same time? What do you think? Our theme for this episode? Health. Not just the kind you get from dumbbells and exercise machines. This episode looks at different kinds of health, physical and moral. First, there's Health House itself, a temple to physical perfection. But appearances matter more than reality. Old Bernard runs it like a Victorian morality play. No smoking, drinking, or divorce. But beneath all those rules and regulations, our man likes a $75,000 fraud scheme. Then we've got the contrast between youth and age. There's Ward Nichols, Casey Daniels, and Veronica Temple on one side. Buzz Farrell, the Housemans, Clara Prentice, and Bernard Daniels on the other. It's not really a clean divide. Bernard is physically healthier than Buzz, but he's also more morally suspect. Veronica is beautiful, but she's ugly internally. The episode also explores healthy and unhealthy relationships. Casey and Ward might have a healthy future together, but only after excising the cancer of Ward's secret past with Veronica. Eugene and Rhonda Houseman's marriage looks healthy on the surface, but it's sick with secrets and lies. In the end, Perry shows us true health isn't just about strong muscles or clean living. It's about honesty, integrity, and justice. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, MD Milton Berry. Now it's time for a Perry proverb. This episode's Pearl of Wisdom comes when Casey Daniels first approaches Perry about helping Ward. Despite her desperation and good intentions, Perry draws a clear, ethical line.
Does Ward know you've come to see me? Well, I can't very well represent him without his permission.
This isn't just lawyer talk, it's life wisdom. Real help, like real justice, requires consent and cooperation. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You can't defend someone who won't let you defend them. Now, let's grab a swig from the water cooler.
There is one thing I don't understand.
Go on, Paul.
Every time we visit the water cooler, we give you deleted scenes, 3 bits that didn't quite make the final cut. Number 1, Della Street leads the office in mandatory morning calisthenics. Paul keeps trying to sneak donuts. Number 2, Lieutenant Anderson whips Lieutenant Tragg in a handball match for who will get to be lead lieutenant in the Perry Mason cases. There can be only one, yells Lieutenant Anderson on winning the match's final point. Number 3, when Perry asks Dr. Berry about his medical credentials, the doctor responds by making him do 20 push-ups. You're worse than Burger, snaps Perry. Our Paul prompt for the last episode, The Case of the Injured Innocent, involved the special engine inventor Mooney has made.
When Kirby first told me about this rotary engine, no valves, no pistons, no cams, it sounded like a big moneymaker.
Still does.
We asked whether or not the engine actually existed in 1961, or if it was even feasible. Dad Drake was on the case. Quote, a functioning, reliable, valveless, pistonless, and camless engine would not have been practical in the early 60s. That said, Felix Wankel developed a prototype rotary engine in the 50s that had those features. And starting in the late 1960s, car manufacturer Mazda touted their revolutionary rotary engine. Based on Wankel's engine, it was valveless, pistonless, and camless. Facts emphasized in their advertising. It featured ports instead of valves, a rotor instead of pistons, and no need for cams because there were no pistons. It reached its peak commercial use in the 70s and 80s, but because it resulted in higher emissions and had poorer fuel efficiency, the rotary engine was phased out completely by Mazda in 2012. End quote. Thanks, Daddy-O. Aunt Mai was on the case too. She wrote in that Wankel's rotary engine was used in the German NSU RO80, which was voted Car of the Year in 1968. Thanks, P.I. Mai. As always, I'd love to hear from you. Have a comment on the episode or the pod in general? Why don't you drop me a line at theperrypod@gmail.com. Next time, polish those professor's glasses and dust off the diplomas when a college president's questionable past collides with $1 million donation. Perry finds himself teaching a crash course in how to solve a murder. It's the case of the brazen bequest. Join us, won't you? Until then, this is Jonathan Searcy saying, keep on walking that Park Avenue beat!